You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Franco Luna, Puma Podcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News, balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
In rehabilitation medicine, the primary aim is to get the patient into a form that he can or she can already move and take care of himself or herself to a certain degree. So, yung manipulation of objects in daily life, like feeding, clothing themselves, yun yung ultimate reason why you have therapy.
join me as I try out this promising new wearable robot for people undergoing physical therapy. I'm here at the Salle Laguna campus in Santa Rosa. I'm here to visit the facility of the Agapay exoskeleton project. It is a 3D printed wearable robot that can be used by persons with disabilities for therapy and rehabilitation purposes.
The way that things go now, one PT is typically assigned to one patient. And that exercise can be as long as 1 hour and as short as 30 minutes. So they have to have a lot of staff, a lot of rooms. What if you have a machine that can help direct positioning, can help do the exercises or do an assistive for the exercises? It could be a multiplying factor.
That's Volter Dupo. He's an engineer and the lead researcher of the DLSU Institute of Biomedical Engineering and Health Technology's Agapay project. Let me start with a heartbreaking statistic. According to the US National Stroke Association, just 10% of patients experiencing paralysis go on to recover completely. That's significant to me because I am part of the 90% that had to relearn how to live life with a disability. I had a stroke at the tender age of 6 and lost control of my left side as a result. Now as an adult, I've learned to work around it. Like I do with most of my daily tasks, I actually had to type this entire script with one hand. It makes me clumsy and prone to typos, but it's functional at the very least. But many other people aren't able to adjust as easily. Enter the Agapay project.
For a practitioner, that's difficult, sabi nung physiatrist. But for a machine, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Kasi sabi niya, the machine will still wait. And then with force of movement, still wait, force of movement. Pero you can program the movement to be so minute na hindi masakit sa pasyente. And the machine will not get tired. We just do the job, sabi niya.
Agapay is a Filipino word that means to reinforce or support. The project made news recently after it secured its first international patent in Singapore. I went to visit the team at their Laguna campus specifically to take the Agapay robot out for a spin. Here's how it works.
So, meron siyang fingers. Ito yun.
This is for the arm.
This is for the arm. So, yung sa arm, as you can see, it's a bit heavy duty.
So separate na talaga.
Separate talaga siyang unit. Ito yung original niya na design. So, it's a glove that has a cable attached to each of the individual fingers ng mismong glove natin. And you can basically use the cable to pull or push the fingers into position.
Okay, so I'm wearing the hand model of the Agapay exoskeleton now. It's a blue cloth glove with 3D printed plastic, let's call them knobs, fashioned around the glove to sort of mimic the anatomy of a human hand, no? So those plastic circles are really meant to function as joints. The team had to be a bit more resourceful when crafting the glove. For example, the knobs are attached to cables which are then connected to electric motors.
So the metal cables, what material is that?
They're actually bicycle cables. Shimano, one of the best bicycle cables that we know of. It's a very good product that the Japanese made. Kasi tama, kahit you bend that cable, kahit i-push mo siya, it moves.
Yes.
Even if it's brutally bent.
The Agapay team says the project was started specifically with stroke survivors in mind. Stroke is one of the leading causes of both death and disability in the Philippines after all. By the way, they're not just engineers and programmers. The Agapay team also has experts from the Philippine General Hospital on board to advise on the rehabilitation side of things. Voltaire says that insight made all the difference in the final product, specifically in the area of
motion, range of motion, tsaka the acceptability ng motion natin as a mimicry of the human arm.
Engineer Voltaire says the team had to painstakingly study and animate basic motions like raising your arm, touching your fingers, all the way to bringing a spoon or a bottle to your mouth and even putting on clothes. There are programmed movements for your elbows, wrists, and fingers too.
Yung sa kasi, sa motion niyan, well, it's still programmed to a certain extent. Pero ang programming niya in terms of sequences, kasi yung movement niya, bringing something to the mouth, pagkuha mo, that's a sequence of probably 4 steps. Tapos another sequence na naman of 4 steps na merong small intervals. So if you can program it in such a way na ganun, you might end up with something na,
Those might not sound like big things, but for paralytics who just suffered a stroke, those abilities are almost completely lost. That was the case for me back then. Now think about the fact that it can be a robot facilitating therapy for you. That doesn't just improve healthcare outcomes, it reduces costs too in an industry sorely lacking in manpower. In 2020, the Philippine Physical Therapy Association said there were just a little over 13,000 active licensed physical therapists in the entire country. Not to mention the thousands we lose every year.
The number of PT graduates and PT license holders that we have diminishes every year because we're losing them to other nations that also needs and demands additional PT personnel.
To put that number into perspective, there were 1.44 million Filipinos in the country living with a disability in 2010. That number made up for almost 2% of the total population that year, though no government census on PWDs was ever conducted since then.
In terms kasi of impact, if this works out, it could be a game changer. Kasi take note, we probably only have like 1,000 tertiary level hospitals that have a rehabilitation department. Probably twice as more rehabilitation clinics around. So that puts a fairly low amount of centers that can do physiotherapy work that people can go to. And what if you're living in a far-flung area where there is no practitioner?
Voltaire also says the lack of access and quality rehab was something that inspired the group. Turns out, he and I actually have something in common. He also once had to undergo physiotherapy because of shoulder and back problems. We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, how long will it take before we see the Agapay exoskeleton in our hospitals and stores? The Agapay exoskeleton isn't the first of its kind in the world. There are already electric arm braces in the market, like the Western-made Mayo Pro and the powered exoskeleton Kaidan 7. But the Agapay robot is different because
Kasi the form factor, the lengths are based on a Filipino model rather than the American one. Kasi this is a item that we have problems here with the Philippines. Like, we purchase a bed for a patient room. The bed size is considered to be large. But for a Filipino, that large bed is already XL. So, merong mismatch dun sa ano na yun. Because yun nga, technology made in the Western economies, their proportions matches the Western physiology.
again, that was Voltaire Dupo, the lead researcher of the project. The Agapay exoskeleton was developed with funding from the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Council for Health Research and Development, and in partnership with the UPPGH.
So ayun naman, no, I'm trying out the arm portion of the Agapay project now. My arm is strapped to aluminum bars that serve as arms. They have joints and they're connected to motors as well. And it's programmed to move in different directions, no? The movements are also programmed to sort of mimic the natural movements of an arm.
The team says this is the Agapay's selling point. It's user-friendly, safe to use, comfortable, and cost-effective. There's just one problem. It's a little too big. The adjustable arm frame is made of US steel after all. The end goal is still to make it a wearable robot that can be used for assistive purposes and not just rehabilitation. Assistive technology means it's something you can carry around with you to help you with your daily life. Like crutches.
Yun yung question ngayon eh. The initial project was really for rehabilitation medicine. Pero you cannot stop kasi at that point. If you want something to come up as a commercialized model for this one, you might as well approach it from an assistive standpoint na daily tasks ang gagawin mo. And that's one of the things that I have been pondering for quite some time. A few years ago, wearables was not really something. Then, all of a sudden, one of the economies, Japan, approved an Omron wearable that was considered to be medical grade. Then, slowly after, the more popular Apple got approved by the US FDA. And now, ano nangyayari na? People are getting these machines in order to look at their condition of their heart.
But right now, it's just too unwieldy with all its moving parts. It also has to be plugged into power since it's controlled by a computer program. That means it can only be used in hospitals and other specialized facilities, which is also why it's taken a while to test the machine.
And another challenge yan naman, nung tapos na yung fabrication, but we need to test. Some of the testing facilities don't exist here in the Philippines. You have to test and evaluate it for in terms of medical standard niya. Safety siya na item. This is something that if we play our cards right, we find the correct value engineering firm, we can reduce the weight. Kasi at this point, medyo mabigat siya eh.
Yeah.
But it fits already on a backpack. Yung yung kanyang control mechanism.
There are also some technical things the team has yet to work out. For instance, they've only made hand and arm prototypes for your right arm, with prototypes for the left arm still in the works. It was also glitchy at times when I tried it.
The two kasi, they don't really coexist in the same department in traditional medicine. Meaning to say, the arm belongs to physiotherapy, the hand belongs to occupational therapy. Pero most of the patients who have gone through and survived the stroke, they face both problems, yung sa movement of the arm, movement of the hand.
Once upon a time, I couldn't move a single muscle on my left side. Having just one functional pair of limbs meant I couldn't walk, couldn't eat, couldn't put on clothes, and couldn't live a normal life. During my time at the Salle campus in Laguna, I couldn't help but think about how much faster I would have recovered with better technology. In fact, I never even fully recovered even after years of therapy, but I was able to at least get back movement in those muscles and eventually regain some semblance of normalcy. Lots of other people don't get this far. The road ahead for the Agapay team is long and potentially bumpy. Before getting to clinical trials, they have to pass safety tests and preclinical studies. Then they have to look for industry partners who can manufacture it, apply for all sorts of permits, etc., etc. So when Voltaire says they're determined to see this robot hit the shelves, my little stroke survivor heart secretly cheered.
There are really strict guidelines when it comes to medical devices. So, antayin nyo lang. Just wait for it. These things will have their day naman that they become commercialized and are more readily available here in the Philippines.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Franco Luna. This episode was edited by Pidoy Blanco. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcast on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.